All right. Good afternoon. I have to say we start now with the more specific panels after the more general presentations we had since the morning. So, but there is already some link we discussed already with the last speaker, Dr. Morris, who ended with intelligence, with artificial intelligence and technology, and where we are moving. Do we have an order for this? We don't have, as you mentioned. So right now, in the context of the China Belt and Road, so the China's digital Silk Road, cybersecurity and Eurasia, opportunities and challenges. So we have excellent experts here. Unfortunately, all of them are sitting here on panel. We have to listen them to Zoom, but it worked well. Our technology here, thanks to our aides here, worked very well so far. So I hope it will work in this panel as well. We start according to the program here. We start with Parzyan. So she is, I don't want to go too much in a long CV, just mention the few words what we have in the program. She's with the China-Eurasia Council for Political Research here in Yerevan. And she's also with China and digital leadership in Eurasian cyberspace, or is this the title? That's more your title, right? Yes. Okay. Please, Anahit, the floor is yours. 10 minutes if you can manage.
Well, thank you so much. It's a remarkable day because here are one of the best and worldwide famous professors and specialists here in Yerevan. And after long COVID times, when we can see via Zoom everyone, at least this year, we can see some of our participants in person. So we hope that next year, China will also be able to participate and we will see everyone in person. I think that before starting, I would like to thank also everyone for being here, because knowledge is a hard thing. And sometimes it is very hard, especially in this technologically run world order, to get not only information, but also knowledge. So thank you for staying and for participating. I would like also to congratulate Dr. Mher Sahakyan for the publication of the book. I would like to mention that this is the first book in Armenia dedicated to China-Armenian relations for students. And I'm very proud that he was the first person to establish this sphere as a subject to deliver this information at the universities. So as you understand, I can cut a little bit shorter from my speech because I took my time for congratulations. Okay, so today I would like to speak about China and digital leadership in Eurasian cyberspace. In the current world order, states are becoming more dependent on technologies, and digital development is becoming a might for gaining digital power. So digital Silk Road is one of the tools that China is developing to have its existence, its presence in different continents. And particularly today, we're going to specify its extension into Eurasia. So for that reason, I would like to raise several questions. So which are the peculiarities of the advanced technologies of the China's digital Silk Road? What are the consequences of different ideologies and standards in cyberspace policy and data privacy for the enlargement of the digital Silk Road? And how and why China is using its digital Silk Road for pivoting towards Eurasia? So unveiled in 2015, as just part of BRI, Digital Silk Road is advancing both in China and it's expanding its technological advance outside of China in several areas, including wireless network, AI, e-commerce, surveillance cameras, smart cities, subsea cables, satellites, hardware, etc. It's interesting to mention that Digital Silk Road is one of those components of Chinese Belt and Road Initiative that is the focus of development is not only outside of China, but it is simultaneously in the development process inside of China. So consequently, it is like two parts of the sword. Xi Jinping is positioning China's technological advance as a strategic action plan for enriching its economy within a new realm by providing digital infrastructure to the markets, whereas harshly met by its competitor, US, trying to lean also to those yet not covered by technological leading states. So it is important to mention what are those digital Silk Road technologies that China is mostly leaning on for expanding to other countries. So China is trying to enlarge its own digital infrastructure around the world in parallel with the US infrastructure projects so that it becomes a self-dependent platform. It is a big challenge for the US since historically the US invested in the subsea cables and the input into the economic growth was prominent. So competing over subsea cable with China is directly related to the economy, and not only in the dominance where each 10% of investment in broadband increases 1.2% in GDP. Initially successfully incubated in China, smart city projects, 5G networks, as well as e-commerce and fintech are growing rapidly in Chinese 1.4 billion market. Chinese companies are offering up-to-date 5G technology solutions to the world, leading the market for advanced technology solutions at the same time, championing worldwide with patents. So another important sphere is satellite navigation system. So only completed in 2020, China's Beidou satellite navigation system is more accurate, specifically in Asia-Pacific region than global positioning system, the GPS. So it means that in wartime, it is more important to have more accurate positioning systems. Consequently, it is going to be more competitive, particularly in Asia-Pacific. Another one is the safe city concept and surveillance technologies. The outbreak of COVID-19 in Wuhan in early 2020 has accelerated the consolidation and enhancement of surveillance systems, both on a community management level as well as on international border level. Tracking movement, facial detection system, body temperature system, as well as data analytics based on COVID-19 testing systems has become an emergency responsive mechanism for Chinese and other nations. So slowly, from just only COVID-19 technological infrastructure, it has become another infrastructure for just safe cities, smart cities, and just security systems worldwide. Another interesting component of Belt and Road Initiative, particularly Digital Silk Road, is the submarine terrestrial cables. This is a key infrastructure that is identified by the Chinese government that includes submarine and terrestrial cables, data centers, and cloud computing. Chinese companies are investing in these areas along the Digital Silk Road, and Chinese companies, including the big three telecom operators such as China Mobile, China Telecom, China Unicom, together with Huawei, took part in constructing 62 submarine cables and 48 terrestrial cables worldwide, and specifically among BRI states. Standard settings is an ultimate goal for Digital Silk Road because as compared with other products, technology is very much based on ideology as well. And since there is a big discussion regarding the Chinese, US, and also Russian conception of governing cybersecurity, particularly the concept of cyber sovereignty. There is an importance to understand who and what ideology is put under the standards. So China is imposing and trying to be very active in gaining patents more in different technologies, particularly in AI and 5G. China is the lead on a global level, by the way, in 5G. In addition, most of them have not specified policy yet, and it is increasing its and investing in, particularly in those states which are not having specific policy on cybersecurity. So it will be much easier to have this enlargement in specifically those markets. So Russia and Eurasia is exactly those geographical places where China can, without any problems, invest in spreading its technologies, because particularly ideology is very much linked to the perception of putting standards, and the Eurasian and also including Russia are actually leaning to the same ideology. Russia and Chinese cooperation in cyberspace regulations is very much confirmed also by their joint agreement and joint position in UN group of governmental experts, and it was also put into vote, and the majority of the countries of the Eurasian continent also supported that initiative, which position the position of cyber sovereignty, which each country has its own cyberspace, and the regulations are not international and global, but are the same as are for their territorial borders. So Russia and Digital Silk Road are the projects that China is looking for, and there are different levels of analysis that provides information of how successful that can be on a state level. As I mentioned already, in a group, even on a UN level, they agreed to promote the same ideology, and also there is on an organizational level, well, Russia's Eurasian Economic Union is also supporting the same ideology regarding cyberspace. Consequently, the project of Digital Silk Road is very much possible to be conjuncted to Eurasian Economic Union's digital agenda, which is also seeking the same priorities for space regulations, but at the same time is not questioning a lot of information that is very much sensitive to Western countries. Regarding the security on personal level and data security. And also there is important aspect that Eurasian countries, not only within the scope of Eurasian Economic Union, but also separately have different projects with China. These projects are very much under question now, especially with Belarus regarding the current developments regarding the Ukrainian war. The big investments have been done over there, and the transportation and the logistics of these technologies are quite under big question. And there are also two other countries of the Eurasian Economic Union that can gain these opportunities, particularly Armenia and Kazakhstan. Armenia is also positioning IT as a major component that is supported by the government, and also Armenian workforce for IT development is quite competitive, considering its education and also language knowledge. And at the same time, Kazakhstan has a better geographical position regarding the fact that it has border with China and Russia. So these two countries can definitely gain those opportunities, which are now very much under question with Russia, particularly as a country, and also Belarus regarding the becoming a transit between Digital Silk Road, Eurasian Economic Union, and other countries' possibilities. So I will conclude my speech with very short remarks regarding the possibilities and this major competitiveness, despite of the fact that two different ideologies are now offered to the other world. That means all other countries, including all of us. It will be very hard not to choose or to balance this part, but at the same time, it's harmful to mention that Global Infrastructure Outlook forecast 7.8 trillion investments in telecommunication infrastructure, with 8.9 trillion investments still needed by that, featuring 1.0 trillion investment gap. So if we have these major gaps in the world that can just help the countries to develop, it's very hard for humans just to have the conflicts regarding the decoupled competition of big two digital hegemons. So it's important to unite our efforts and to be connected in an internet world and not to be disconnected with two big hegemons, digital, I mean. Thank you so much.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Anahit. So I liked especially your first to see your concept of the double-edged sword, China's role in the digital world, domestic and internationally. But I would be more interested, maybe we can discuss it a little bit later on, because at the end you spoke more about competition and possible disconnect. Because in your most of your speech you spoke about incentives and opportunities, which is all true, and very detailed knowledge about all these incentives. But listening to the speeches in the morning, there's lots of competition, especially among the great powers. And you spoke about Russian-Chinese cooperation, but I can imagine, especially in this Eurasian area, there's lots of Russian-Chinese competition as well when it comes to geopolitics. So you are speaking about from the perspective of the technology and the necessity to connect. But we do have this geopolitical world, what we discussed in the morning. So maybe we can discuss this a little bit later to have some link between the morning and this afternoon session as well. But thank you very much. It was very knowledgeable, and so as always. So we are moving on to the next speaker. I don't know whether she is online already. Dr. Magdalena Łągiewska. So she is from the University of Gdańsk in Poland, but she is also a research associate at the University of Oxford. I don't know where you're speaking from. Speaking you from Oxford or from Poland or from Gdańsk?
Good morning. I'm speaking directly from Gdańsk and from my university. So, yes.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. So you will speak on the legal aspects of the digital Silk Road. Again, new trends and challenges we are looking.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to take part in this wonderful event, and thank you very much to Director Mher Sahakyan for this event. I really regret that I couldn't join you in Armenia today, but I will do my best to share just a little bit of my research about legal aspects of the digital Silk Road. Digital Silk Road, as you already know, it's an international project and just an element of the Belt and Road Initiative. And this project aims at restructuring the global landscape by introducing Chinese innovation-driven technologies in the cyber world. And from this perspective, one could even say that China wishes to become a global technological superpower through the digital Silk Road. So China makes some efforts to launch globally its conception of internet governance, which is based upon digital, physical, and platform technologies along with the services. And we have, of course, host countries which are eager to benefit from this kind of technologies, and also new solutions that are offered by China, including, for instance, PADO system. So a system which is competitive compared to the American GPS, or also 5G, or even right now 6G network. So aside from these examples, the digital Silk Road also makes use of artificial intelligence and big data. So there are many different approaches when we need some legal regulations to make it possible. Because even if China would like to introduce digital currencies such as yuan, it also needs some legal framework. But what I would like to focus on today is just to say a few words about this legal framework when it comes to the cooperation with other countries, because this is a very important one. So mostly when we think about digital Silk Road, here we should have in mind that China, instead of traditional treaties, which means international law, so some agreements concluded according to this branch of law, China mostly focuses on bilateral and multilateral agreements, which are simply signed with host countries. And so at the beginning, we have mostly a memorandum of understanding. This is just the first step. And afterwards, after some negotiation, China simply signs some bilateral or multilateral agreements, which means that in this case, China simply opts for soft law for digital Silk Road project. But it's very important to remember that there are some international platforms which are already dedicated to the technological standard setting and governance. So to name a few, we have, for instance, something that is called Geneva-based International Telecommunication Union, which represents a multilateral organization which functions under the auspices of the United Nations. But China takes some steps to fully introduce international and Chinese standards, I would even say, in cyber world. So to achieve such a goal, there are many changes also in Chinese domestic law. For instance, concerning data privacy, data protection, but also cyber security issues. It's also very important to remember that digital Silk Road also in some kind supports, and it's very important to achieve sustainable development goals, which are just provided by the Agenda 2030, which means that here also when DSR was drafted, afterwards China was even asked to change a little bit the framework of BRI to comply with sustainable development goals and with Agenda 2030. And it means to fulfill better the obligations stemming from this agenda, from this document. So as we see, there are many different aspects. Also, digital Silk Road concerns e-commerce, and probably will have many disputes arising from the digital Silk Road in this regard, especially when we have some cross-border disputes. As we already know, China launched many institutions that are dedicated solely to handle BRI-related disputes, such as China International Commercial Court, for instance. But it's too early to decide whether it really works or not, because we didn't have the opportunity to analyze too many cases that were handled by this institution so far, mostly due to pandemic. But right now, just a few words about China's legal system and their way how to adjust to provide a better environment to the digital Silk Road. So first of all, we have data privacy, which was simply launched in China recently, because Chinese authorities simply realized that there is a need of a complex regulation on data protection, because as we have digital technologies which were introduced in different areas, it means that we also need some legal framework to cover this area. So at the beginning, we had some golden projects of the 1990s, but recently we have a new law enacted by the Chinese lawmaker, that is a personal information protection law. And this law resembles the European General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. And the Chinese regulation here entered into force on 1st November 2021, so more than 1 year ago. And such provisions significantly affected not only online services, which is quite crucial when it comes to cross-border disputes, but also the social credit system in China, which makes use of personal data. So here we think about something that could be even called like cybernetic citizenship. So in this case, we have a new approach and a new regulation that simply entered into force. So the COVID-19 pandemic here even accelerated works on new legislation that covers data protection issues in China, because in the course of the pandemic, many platforms made use of facial recognition, collected other necessary information to protect citizens from disease. And it was just in the wake of COVID-19 and as a result of such actions that the Chinese lawmaker simply realized that there is an increasing demand for the protection of personal information. And this need simply led to the enactment of this legal act. Aside from data protection, we have also more specific regulation covering cybersecurity, because this is also very important, just to have in mind that we need some legal framework. So at the beginning, we had a cybersecurity law and then a data security law, which represent, together with a law on personal information protection, a triple legislation which introduced a broader perspective and also more complex framework for the better protection of data within the People's Republic of China. Because of course, here we have a trend that on the one hand, China make use of digital Silk Road to attract more people to do even their business in China through DSR, but also they try to sell out their new technologies abroad, mostly in African countries. So there, Africa make use simply of some surveillance system or facial recognition system. And here I see that there is still some lack, some loopholes when it comes to legal regulation. Because of course, when it comes to cybersecurity and even cyber world in general, there is no international law covering this area so far. Because when it comes to international law, this branch of law, it's a little bit stable, which means that we need quite a lot of time just to adopt new solutions and to convince many states that these solutions are worth watching and then adopting. So when it comes just to, when I come just to the conclusion, when it comes to the digital Silk Road, here I see that on the one hand, China seeks to provide a new approach to the use of a digital Silk Road with many different, in many different areas, and also in some kind to fulfill some obligations, some duties stemming from the Agenda 2030 on Sustainable Development Goals. But on the other hand, when it comes to digital Silk Road, there is a need to more conscious thinking about some challenges that could appear mostly with regard to cybersecurity issues, because we are very optimistic about these new technologies, about the artificial intelligence, but we don't think too much when it comes to some legal regulations about the outcome that could happen in the future. So here I still see there are some loopholes that need to be addressed, especially for those countries who are very involved in the Belt and Road Initiative and in the DSR project in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Of course, you mentioned that we don't have real regulations in the field of digital security, and you mentioned two areas, data protection and cyber security. And you said it's China relies more on a soft law, but of course, if you have a soft law, you have loopholes that you mentioned at the end as well. But we have now this maritime sea code, and now we have the digital sea code. I wonder how these are connected, because I guess the digital sea codes in many ways supports the other two areas of the Belt and Road Initiative. So it's not something in the air, only in the spare and in the space. So how they are linked, and in your title you have some expression leadership. So you didn't mention that leadership really. So, but I think it's important as well, because if you speak about protection and about security, you have always to ask who is protected, and the security is for whom. So, and there is some asymmetry here, what you mentioned, because the word leadership already expresses some asymmetry. That would be something what we have to discuss. Would be interesting to go further and discuss as well later on. But we have the next speaker, Dr. Giorgio Caridi. So he joins us from university, from Italy, eCampus University. So I'm not really sure where this is. If you can help us to understand this, where this eCampus is. And you will speak about tackling environmental worries and social tensions, so e-government systems in Eurasia and China. That's especially interesting because now we have as a coming in social developments as well. So challenges and opportunities. We're looking forward to your 10 minutes presentation.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the organization for letting me be here. And I got a few slides that I will share with you. Do you see them?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So today we're gonna discuss about how to tackle the environmental worries and social tension through the use of e-government systems. First of all, we need to clarify some concepts. First of all, e-government. What is meant by it? It refers essentially to the use of innovative technologies in the administrative processes that the public administrations perform to provide service to citizens. That's to say, it does not coincide just with the computerization and the digitalization, but it's something that is more innovative, that gives an improvement of the final services to users. Then, just to start with the focus, we have a situation in Italy where most medium to large companies belongs to the public administration, or it is closely connected to it, as it is accountable for public services. On the other side, we see that in China, several medium to large companies belong to the public administration too, and both they're accountable for public services. So we got two countries that are pretty different from each other, but essentially we found out that they have this kind of segment, which is pretty similar. And another similar fact for these two countries is that they have two problems. Environmental worries. We see that plastics are everywhere. Our seas are polluted, our air is polluted, and that is causing strong social tensions. They're starting to grow more and more, and they, of course, have been exacerbated by the recent COVID-19 crisis. So we will see through our research how to tackle these two kind of problems, because right now it is time to change, time to tackle these issues. How to change? First of all, we need to make some changes in the public administration because putting the user at the center of the administrative action is fundamental both in order to reorganize the administrative activity, which is dedicated to services, and to redirect it to the online channel from the traditional ones. Why? Later on, we will see why this is so important. First of all, we must say that the use of ICT and e-government can contribute heavily to the achievement of sustainability, and mainly in two ways. First of all, through the reduction of the emissions of the ICT itself, and then through the use through separate green policies that includes changing the way people work, live, and conduct business. So essentially changing the world. We need to provide an access to inbound services with just one user IDs, just one password, just one PIN, and we need to give to citizens just one electronic identity card that must become the only IT tool to allow citizens accessing public services network. This will be helpful even because through a coupling with online payment services, we will grant to citizens the right to reduce the administrative and organizational cost, and we will improve transparency from the public administration point of view. But right now, it's time to focus on the relationship between the sustainability, which is a concept pretty simple, and especially through an improvement of sustainability and its consequences, which is, not surprisingly, a lowering, a tackling of all the environmental worries and the consequent social tensions. Right now, we have performed two kinds of research. We have started to develop and we have administered the questionnaire, and then we have deepened the specific e-government systems in Italy. Let's start with the questionnaire. This questionnaire has been given to 300 public administrations or medium to large companies that are accountable for public services, both in Italy and in China, just to understand which is the situation in both these two countries. Let's try to start with the first question we have asked in this questionnaire, the use of e-government systems. As we see from the comparison of the two main data, more or less, we got, not surprisingly, a basic use, which is almost the same percentage, 45%. But on the other side, we have a huge difference between an Italian situation where there is a poor use of e-government system for quite a large amount, 35%, while on the other side, we have an excellent use of the government systems in China that is accountable for the 20%. So quite a different situation, but it will be important to develop two different studies to understand better. For the second question, of course, Italy and China are two different countries. They have totally different dimensions. So not surprisingly, the people served dimension is pretty different. While in Italy, which is, of course, really a smallest country, if compared to China, we have the main segment which serves over 500 people. On the other side, in China, we have the largest segment, which serves more than 5 million. Of course, it is related to dimensions. Then, for the third question, we have deepened the attitude toward digitization. And for the first two segments, they are approximately the same. So we have two huge amount of people that are pro-innovation. So their attitude is, let's innovate, or innovation is cool. While in Italy, we have even a large amount that is not ready yet to innovate. So not ready to operate in digitization. Then we have tried to deepen the factors that are against the government, and we see that a huge problem in Italy is the lack of capitals. While on the other side, in China, another growing problem is the lack of knowledge, which is a real problem because it's the enabling factor that can improve the government systems. Then, what actions can be needed? Well, in Italy, we have a strong focus on the university cooperation and on company cooperation. We see that, for instance, China is very, very interested in technological cooperation, which is strong, and especially for those companies that are trying to acquire the specific technical knowledge to improve these e-government systems. So after making this comparison, we have started to deepen the study of the e-government systems in Italy, and we are focused on the patronage. First of all, patronages are, according to the Italian constitution, subjects of private law that are performing functions in the public interest. That's to say, they provide citizens with public services. So patronages can heavily affect the sustainability of the Italian welfare system through the government. First of all, in the study, the effect of the government systems have been analyzed with respect to the usual target public and, of course, with the results in terms of action performed online, trying to understand if they affect the performance of consumption. That's to say, the sustainability of the whole system. The chosen subject is accountable for the 5% of the applications processed by the whole systems of patronages. And despite it is reduced database and it has a modest dimension, the case highlights the impact on performance. Following the introduction of the government systems, we see that the e-applications are approximately equal to the 1% of the total application. So even if the direct effects on the overall patronage systems are quite bland in stock terms, they are significant to depict a reasonably possible trend over the users. We have in Italy a situation of approximately 59 millions of citizens. So nothing if compared to China, of course. And then we have got 28 millions of citizens that already have access to a digital identity that gives them access to several public services. Then we have 12 millions of citizens that every year interact with patronages. So with kind of subjects that are accountable for public services. And according to a prudential conversion rate of 1%, we have 120,000 government users that each year do not have to waste time overreaching public offices in order to get what they need. So they reduce pollution, they improve their quality of life, and in the end, they improve the overall consumptions of the systems and the quality of the life in the system. So, which is the conclusion essentially? We need to go green. We need to e-gov the systems, because through this, we will improve life of the citizens and we will save our planet from the doom. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very good timing for your presentation. Very, very interesting. The impression I have is that e-government is a very strong word. So it says that decisions will be made. But also here we have the question of how does democracy come in? But usually if we speak about government, we speak about state institutions, but you're talking more or less on non-state actors in this e-government. Even so, there might be a good purpose on, as you talk about tackling environmental worries, but nevertheless, so how our decisions are made and how the decision takers are controlled. So who controls this e-government? So that's usually in political science, we talked about a weaker term. We talked about governance, but you talk about government. That's much stronger than governance already. So lots of open questions, of course. But we have to move on because we are running out of time. I'm afraid we will not have much time for discussion, but we have to listen to this presentation by Dr. Mher Sahakyan. So we know him already, so it's just bringing coals to Newcastle if I introduce him now. But anyway, I read it out. He is, of course, he is director of the China-Eurasia Council for Political and Strategic Research in Armenia, and he is also 2022 Asia Global Fellow, Asia Global at the Asia Global Institute, and at the University of Hong Kong. He is going to speak about China's digital Silk Road and Eurasian Economic Union challenges and opportunities. Mher, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. In the 21st century, it is not possible to create strong state without digitalization of economy, strengthening cybersecurity, and developing technologies. For this reason, China continuously raises its investments in research and development. For instance, only in 2021, Beijing invested 441 billion in its research and developments, which was 14.2% more than in 2020. Among priorities of research and developments are digitalization, development of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity research in big data, 5G, and Internet of Things. For instance, one of the Chinese leaders of Chinese leading scholars in the field of artificial intelligence, Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, writes in his IE Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order, that China started to pay great attention on development of artificial intelligence when the best player, Gärtner of Chinese chess, defeated by AlphaGo, which was backed by the US Google. Now, one of the main aims of China to stand digital and technological superpower till 2030. For this reason, the US sees challenges in China's technological advancement. It tries to oust Chinese technological companies from the US and the European markets, and it has some kind of success. It also argued to UK, to France, and our European states do not work with Huawei and our Chinese companies. Aforementioned facts create obstacles for China, but also provide an opportunity to enlarge its own capabilities for producing technologies and find new markets in developing world for its technological products. For implementing this strategy in the framework of Belt and Road Initiative, China settled Digital Silk Road. Therefore, this ongoing research will mostly focus on China's technological cooperation with the Eurasian Economic Union for its Digital Silk Road. The following question arises: why China and Eurasian Economic Union member states need to strengthen their cooperation in the framework of the Digital Silk Road? Which kind of opportunities the agreement of trade and economic cooperation between the Eurasian Economic Union and China provides sites for developing cooperation in the field of digitalization and high technologies? The EU-China agreement, which was signed on May 17, 2018 in Astana, aims to secure the conjunction of the Eurasian Economic Union and Belt and Road Initiative. This agreement opens also prospects for China's Digital Silk Road in Eurasian economic market, which has population for more than 184 million people. For instance, due to Eurasian Economic Union China agreement, one of the main goals is to attract investments for developing and jointly producing high-tech, innovative, and export-oriented products. The following question arises: why Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Armenia are interested in this kind of cooperation? The fact is that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, these countries mostly lost their capabilities of production of technological, high innovative productions and appeared in hard situation. One of the main problems was that they were not making alone one product. Every of them was doing one part of the assembling final product in other places. For instance, in the time of Soviet Union, Armenia was one of the leaders in the fields of innovative and high-tech productions, but it lost its high-tech production capabilities because of the war, earthquake, and blockade. Only Russia could save its military innovative productions, thanks to China and India for their purchases of Russian missile, anti-missile system, jets, engines, radars, etc. In general, all 5 members of the Russian Economic Union are not among leaders of innovative and high-tech producers of the world. And it is not possible to organize technological great leap forward. For this reason, they need to think and organize joint production of high-tech products with leading Chinese technological companies. In turn, due to this agreement, China is getting opportunity to export and transfer its advanced technologies and innovation to the States. The Eurasian Economic Union and China also agreed to encourage the development and use of technologies that facilitate e-commerce. This step provides China to sell its products in the Eurasian Economic Union market, and the Eurasian Economic Union member states also get opportunity to sell their products in the vast Chinese market, which has 1.4 billion people. Actually, even well before this agreement and the establishment of the Eurasian Economic Union Belt and Road Initiative, businessmen of both sides were using Alibaba.com for facilitating e-commerce with each other. This website for now as well remains one of the main connecting factors between China's and post-Soviet Eurasia's business companies. The other Chinese emerging messaging, mobile payment, and social media app also stands popular in the Eurasian Economic Union. It is about WeChat as a result of people-to-people contact and growing trade. For instance, with EU, from my friend from Turkey, we are using WeChat for chatting with each other. Due to the Eurasian Economic Union China agreement, sides also agreed to deepen their cooperation on information exchange between the relevant competent authorities or other interested institutions, meetings and specialized seminars, joint projects in the field of science, technology, and innovations, which will provide an opportunity to enhance cooperation between research institutions and high-tech production centers of China and the Eurasian Economic Union member states. Therefore, the Eurasian Economic Union China Agreement, which came into force on October 25, 2019, provides opportunities to strengthen digital cooperation between China and the Eurasian Economic Union states. On December 21, 2021, during the second online meeting of the Joint Commission on implementing the agreement on trade and economic cooperation between the Eurasian Economic Union and China, Wang Shouwen, Chinese Deputy Minister of Commerce, mentioned that one of the key goals of the agreement is to develop digital transport corridors. It is also answer to your question that digital Silk Road and Silk Road economic belt, they are being conducted also together. As he mentioned, digitalization of rail transportation can have a cumulative effect. Actually, China is one of the leaders in the field of digitalization of railways services and have enough experience to share with Eurasian Economic Union states. In the map, you can see the new Eurasian land bridge, China, Central Asia, Western Asia Economic Corridor, and China, Mongolia, Russia Economic Corridor. So all railways towards Europe, they are going for Russia or Kazakhstan, some part, which is these two states are also the members of Eurasian Economic Union. For this reason, it is very, very important. Let's speak also about challenges and opportunities. On one hand, Russo-Ukrainian war, sanctions on Russia, and Sino-American confrontation in cyberspace, and Western sanction on Chinese technological companies create challenges for the China-Eurasian Economic Union cooperation in the framework of digital Silk Road. On the other hand, these developments also provide opportunities to strengthen cooperation. Therefore, I want to provide several recommendations, and I will finish. The first one, China officially hasn't joined Western sanction against Russia and Belarus, but for the most of its technological companies, it will be hard to invest and work in these countries in the future, as Western sanctions can target them as well. For this reason, China and Russo-Belarusian tandem can choose Armenia as a bridge for their technological cooperation in the framework of digital Silk Road. This country has good relations with the West, Russia, and China. As on the one hand, it is a member of the Eurasian Economic Union. On the other hand, it has signed comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement with the European Union and memorandum of understanding with China on jointly building Belt and Road Initiative. Therefore, taking into consideration growing potential of the country in the field of information technologies and digitalization efforts, Chinese technological companies can relocate their businesses into Armenia and export products to Eurasian Economic Union and neighboring Iran and Middle East. The second recommendation is the Eurasian Economic Union can also negotiate with China for creating digital infrastructure or joining M-Bridge for using digital renminbi, as well for its trade with it. This step will provide an opportunity for Russian, Belarusian, and Chinese companies to continue their trade, even if SWIFT disconnected Russian and Belarusian financial entities from its system. For instance, in 2021, due to UN Comtrade, the trade between Eurasian Economic Union and China totaled 172 billion of dollars. The third one, it is true that Russia is still main supplier of conventional armaments to China and the Eurasian Economic Union member states, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Kyrgyzstan. However, the member of the Eurasian Economic Union and the Collective Security Treaty Organization, Armenia lost its war against Azerbaijan because of the Turkish-made unnamed aerial vehicle Bayraktar TB2. Now Russia is having great casualties because Ukraine is using against Russian troops high-tech unnamed aerial vehicles and other modern weapons of the NATO states. Actually, China has great achievements in production of unnamed aerial vehicles and robotic weapons, for which it also uses artificial intelligence. Therefore, it is also time that the Eurasian Economic Union establish a military industrial center for robotics and unnamed aerial vehicles with China. As Russia and Belarus are under sanctions and because of Ukrainian war, this production can be settled in Kazakhstan or in Armenia. The first one can easily transport this production to Russia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, and Armenia by the help of its well-developed transportation infrastructure. Actually, Kazakhstan already has experience in cooperation with China's technological companies such as Huawei, Hikvision, Dahua Technology, and China Electronic Technology Group Corporation, which are involved in building safe cities and data management centers in Kazakhstan. In turn, Armenia has already experience on production and use of unnamed aerial vehicle. And my last recommendation, the next recommendation is that Eurasian Economic Union and China, in the framework of Digital Silk Road, established the branch of Chinese university, let's say Hong Kong University or other universities, technological centers in Eurasian Economic Union. It can be in Armenia, settled in Yerevan. This step will provide an opportunity to educate Armenian and our students from the Eurasian Economic Union with Chinese educational methods in the field of technologies directly in Armenia. As a result, this step will provide and prepare specialists for the conjunction of Eurasian Economic Union's digital agenda and China's digital Silk Road. In turn, Armenia can establish in Hong Kong or in China its TUMO Center for Creative Education for teenagers, which has also branches in Paris, Berlin, Moscow, Beirut, Tirana, Kiev, and Lyon. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Mher, for this knowledgeable presentation. And thank you also for making the link between the economic and the digital dimension. Observed some inherent contradiction in this topic here, because you, of course, mentioned and mapped out the cooperation in the digital area when, in the Eurasian Economic Union, but we when the products come out to the market, it can be very destructive, because you mentioned this, they can be used for weaponizing during the war. You mentioned the Ukraine war. So on the one hand, you have this cooperation in the digital field in the Eurasian Economic Union, but when it comes out to the market, it can be very destructive. And I don't know how this cooperation and this multilateral framework really can address this issue when their products are used. We have in the conventional field, we have several instruments. We have the Arms Trade Treaty, we have the Wasserman arrangement, which try to control somehow exports of conventional weapons that the end user might be known and so we don't know it in this field of artificial intelligence yet. So that's lacking. Somehow it would link to this law in the area. So we have a law, so that there needs to be an expert law for this. It's what I guess. So that would be the next project. Maybe some of your students can work on this. I guess now I hand over to you, because I think we run out of time. We're a little exhausted here now, and we need a break. We cannot have all the questions you are waiting for to ask, because I have to wait, I think, a little bit. Okay, so I give up my responsibility now, and so
it is time for coffee and pasties, please. And thank you for patience.